many of these people had only gotten their news about Ford Nation and the Ford factor from, I would say, some disproportionate coverage in outlets like the Toronto Star and CBC. So they were expecting a man to come in and maybe even quite literally push furniture around and bloviate and, sort of swear and so forth. And people came up to me afterwards and they said, wow, he was a really reasonable guy and he had his views on public policy that I really liked. And actually, people have told me that they started supporting him and volunteering for his campaign based on that conversation. And Ezra, I think when we get to the truth of what Doug actually believes, what he said during the leadership campaign and what he's going to say on the campaign trail, he is pretty much a centrist, moderate guy. And there was very little difference between the stuff him and Christine Elliott were saying. Now, this may disappoint some people who actually want a bit more apple cart flipping, but quite frankly, he's a moderate.
Yeah. And I think you allude to this in your column, because people have this impression of what the Fords are like, stylistically, aesthetically, some of the personal controversies with Rob, when they get to know Doug, they'll say, oh, well, I'm more comfortable with Doug than I thought I would be. He is not the caricature that a Jimmy Kimmel or a radical CBC host would paint him to be. I think with a lot of politicians that we've known about for years, like take Stephen Harper. By the time he was running his fourth election or whatever it was, everybody had made up their mind about him. No one was going to change what they thought about Stephen Harper. He wasn't going to change his identity. But Doug Ford, I think he still has a chance to introduce himself, and I think it's going to come across, I think, more reasonable than the crazed Ford haters at, say, the Toronto Star, a newspaper that has made it their mission to destroy the Fords. I think he actually has room to grow.
I think you're completely right, Ezra, for just a number of angles. One, he has very moderate views. I mean, he's talking about finding efficiencies for several $1 billion, which is really only 2 to 4% of the government. The other things he's talking about, axing the carbon tax, that is something that when it's pulled appropriately, a lot of people pull it in really bogus ways. Like, do you care about the environment being decimated or whatnot? So obviously everybody says they do. But when you actually ask, do you support a carbon tax? Most people absolutely do not. So all these issues that Doug Ford supports, he's really on the side of the people. And I was actually speaking to him earlier this morning, and he said he wants to get a movement going, or already knows there's a movement out there ripe for the pickings that includes not just conservatives, but disaffected liberals, NDPers, and Green supporters. So rather than going out and alienating people, Doug Ford wants to say to everybody, welcome, come on in. And, I went to his campaign launch and I was also at the convention. You look around the room and the diversity that you see that Doug Ford has brought is greater than you're going to have at any Liberal Party event that I've been to.
That's an excerpt from my daily TV show, The Ezra Levant Show. Normally it's behind a paywall, but I thought you'd like this video, so we put it on YouTube. If you want to subscribe to watch the daily show every day, including always 2 interviews a day, and I read my hate mail, just click on this screen and become a premium member.